Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the AVI-8 Spitfire Smith Automatic. This watch will be available from avi8.co.uk from the 4th of February for $330. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the other items one gets with the piece. So the watch comes in a watch box which is protected by this outer cardboard box. As you can see, it has drawings of the Spitfire because, as the name suggests, the Spitfire Smith Automatic is inspired by the Spitfire fighter plane. The box is finished to a high standard, as you can see. I'll remove the lid and show you the interior. The watch sits on a piece of foam inside a foam cutout panel, so it does a good job of protecting the watch in shipping from any damage. With regards to the other items, this is the owner's instruction manual. Although basic, it does suffice in detailing the operation of the movement used, which is the Seiko NH35A automatic, clear concise diagrams, and the instructions are in English. The watch also is covered by a 12-month international guarantee, which is very reassuring. And lastly, one also gets this AVI-8 tag. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, this is the AVI-8 Spitfire Smith Automatic. We have a 42mm case diameter, we have a lug-to-lug measurement of 49.8mm, a thickness of 14.4mm, and a lug width of 22mm. The genuine leather strap tapers from 22mm at the lugs down to the buckle and tang, and as you can see, the buckle and tang is signed to high standard with AVI-8's brand logo. Good heavy gauge of metal to the buckle and tang. Brushed satin finish, solid 316L grade stainless steel, beautiful luster to the 316L grade stainless steel, as you can see. So I like the execution, it's nicely finished, no sharp edges. With regards to the genuine leather strap, we have two leather keepers, as you can see. Now I think AVI-8 have made a mistake because the two keepers are black. Now I appreciate the black colour is meant to complement the black PVD coated bezel, but as the strap itself is dark green, olive green, I think they should have made the keepers the same olive green colour to match the strap rather than contrasting in black. So one keeper slides, one's fixed as one would expect. I'll show you the underside to the strap. As you can see, finished to high standard, genuine leather, flawless stitching throughout, plenty of holes in the strap to allow for fine tuning the fit. Contrasting white stitching is very aesthetically pleasing at the spring bar end. Now, minor criticism, I would have preferred to see quick release spring bars used in stainless steel. Unfortunately, one needs a spring bar tool to remove the strap to fit alternative straps, and really quick release spring bars are now the industry standard, and they are far better because it negates the need to use a spring bar tool, so that's something I would like to see improved upon. With regards to the rest of the specification, we have a solid 316L grade stainless steel bezel, which is black PVD coated. Now, my concern with a PVD coated bezel is the bezel is an area of the watch which is prone to being scuffed and scratched, and also friction it's going to wear. And therefore, I would question the choice of black PVD coating it, because if this becomes scuffed or scratched, it's going to become difficult to rectify, because unlike brushed satin finishing areas of a watch, one cannot remove the scuffs and scratches to the stainless steel. Once the black PVD coating is scuffed and scratched or worn, it has to be removed and therefore returned to AVI-8, and then it would have to be re-PVD coated. So I think it would have been better, a more sensible choice, if they had made the bezel either mirror polished or alternatively brushed satin finish, and that would mean that scuffs and scratches to it could be easily polished or buffed out. So I think the black PVD coated bezel was an incorrect choice. With regards to the rest of the specification, we have a double dome sapphire crystal with blue tinted AR coating, and the blue tinted anti-reflective coating on the underside does a good job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the double dome sapphire crystal. Date complication is nicely framed at 3 o'clock. We have a black date wheel with contrasting white Arabic numerals, finished to a high standard. Shape of the hands is good, very well executed. One can clearly differentiate between the longer minute hand and also the arrowhead hour hand. Contrasting red second hand complements the red Arabic numerals on the dial, and also it's clearly legible. It contrasts very well against the olive green textured dial. Matte finish to the textured olive green dial, which is very dark green, almost black. The dial execution is very good. Now, this is meant to be a pilot's watch, and therefore they follow the classic pilot dial layout, which works very well. However, if you look closely at the smaller Arabic numerals for the minutes, They're very dark grey, and I think they've made a mistake with this. They should have made them white, or alternatively loomed them in the peach tone patina lume as per the other large Arabic numerals and the hands. It would have looked better if the dial was completely loomed in C3 Superluminova and all the Arabic numerals were the same as the larger applied Arabic numerals. Alternatively, just make them white to match the minute ticks on the chapter ring. So room for improvement on the dial with the smaller Arabic numerals for the minutes, but it's well executed, the symmetry is very good, and they've managed to fit in the date complication at 3 and still retain the symmetry of having 0, 3, 6 and 9 with the large applied Arabic numerals. So, with regards to the crown, it's solid 316L grade stainless steel, no old finish, mirror polished domed cap, it's sterile, it's unsigned. Personally, I think it would look better if it was signed with the AVI-8 brand emblem. So it's a push-pull crown providing 165 feet of hermetic seal. 165 feet equates to 50 metres, and bear in mind this is meant to be a pilot's watch rather than a dive watch. 50 metres of water resistance and a push-pull crown is perfectly acceptable. So in the closed position, one can manually wind the movement, which is the Seiko NH35A automatic, to top it up to its maximum 40-hour power reserve. One can feel the tension in the mainspring gradually building up, and it's an absolute pleasure to manually wind. Pulling it out to the first click position is the date complication setting. Sorry, that's the time setting position. Bear with me and I'll get it. There we are. Right, so in the first click position, it's the quick set date complication, as you can see. And I like the NH35A because it's got a nice positive click. The date complication is indexed. Each day of the month clicks over with a very satisfying click. Pulling it out to the second click position is the time setting position, as you can see. So nice light resistance to the NH35A automatic. Pushing it back in restarts the movement and it closes the hermetic seal to 50 metres. So the crown execution is very good. One doesn't need a screw down crown on a pilot's watch. 50 metres of water resistance is perfectly acceptable for a daily wear piece. Personally, I prefer screw down crowns with a minimum of 100 metres of water resistance, but the advantage of having a push-pull crown is in the closed position one can manually wind it. One doesn't need to pull it out in order to manually wind it, so it has that advantage if you're going to wear the piece in rotation. So with regards to the case back, it's a screw down exhibition case back glazed with mineral crystal, very nicely finished. Concentric lathe turn finishing to the outer section. The stainless steel is made from 316L grade stainless steel, and the mineral crystal is very flat and low profile. I like the milled slots in it, and the specification of the piece is engraved to a high standard. Now, I want to give due credit to AVI-8 because unlike many micro brands in the low tier, they have made some efforts to decorate the rotor. As you can see, the rotor is in the shape of a Spitfire plane, and that really does fit the aesthetic of the watch, being inspired by the Spitfire. And I think it's good. It's nice to see a micro brand making the effort to do something to decorate the movement, rather than using the default option, the standard Seiko NH35A rotor. So the rotor is very nicely finished in the shape of the Spitfire plane, and I like it. Now the NH35A is otherwise undecorated. It's a sterile movement, but it is a reliable, well-proven workhorse movement, and I do like it. Right, so I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now as you can see, the strap is just long enough to fit my 8-inch wrist, and I can just engage the strap in both the keepers, which is good. So 42mm head of the piece. This is a large piece and it does wear with wrist presence. Now the other thing to note is it's a tall piece with a double dome sapphire crystal. This is 14.4mm thick. So it's going to be more difficult to slip underneath a shirt cuff if you wear business shirts, and that's something to consider. At 42mm, I would say it's best suited to collectors with a larger wrist of 7 to 8 inches. If you're a collector with a 6 to 7 inch wrist, you may find the 42mm head of the piece to wear with too much wrist presence for your personal taste. 22mm lug width is the correct choice because the 22mm leather strap balances the 42mm head of the piece. It does feel very well balanced. It's surprising that it's not top heavy. It does actually feel like a very lightweight piece. Now, the thing that surprised me most about this is it's only 78 grams on the leather strap. I expected it to weigh circa 100 grams. Bear in mind it's powered by the NH35A automatic. Automatic movements are heavier than manual wind, and of course quartz powered movements. So really at 78 grams for a 42mm, it's a very lightweight piece and it's deceptive. It does have wrist presence due to the 42mm head of the piece, but it's actually very lightweight. It feels like a 39mm in terms of the heft. So finished to a good standard, but I think it would have looked better if it had a brushed satin finish bezel rather than black PVD coated, and as I've discussed, my concern is when the bezel becomes scuffed or scratched or it wears, it's going to look abhorrent and then it's going to cause a problem for the collector to rectify scuffs and scratches, because one can't polish a PVD coated bezel. It has to be re-PVD coated. But it's an aesthetically pleasing piece if you like pilot watches, and it's clearly legible. The 0, 3, 6 and 9 large applied Arabic numerals are clearly legible, as are the hands and the contrasting red second hand. So the other thing to note is it's a relatively long case. It's 49.8mm, so again really it's only suited to collectors with a larger wrist of 7 to 8 inches. I regard 48mm to be the sweet spot. I often discussed this in my previous reviews. 48mm is perfection because it fits collectors with a 6 to 7 inch wrist and collectors with a 7 to 8 inch wrist respectively. At 49.8 it's nearly 50mm, so it is a long case. Despite the curved undercut of the lugs, it does wrap around the wrist very well, but it clearly is a piece for collectors with a larger wrist of 7 to 8 inches due to the long lug to lug measurements and also 42mm head of the piece. Right, so let's do a Lume test and we'll see how the Lume performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to the absolute peak. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, it has not disappointed. This is C3 Superluminova. This looks like 5 to 6 layers of application, which is very good, both on the applied indices, the large Arabic numerals which are applied, and also the hands. So I like to see 5 to 6 layers because it's glowing brightly and it will continue to glow for a good length of time. Good colour match in terms of the green tone of the dial and also the hands. One detail I would have liked them to add a lume pip on the red contrasting second hand, or alternatively fully lumed the second hand, because it would have been nice to see the second hand sweeping around the dial with a lume pip, or alternatively fully lume the hand itself. So C3 Superluminova is a personal favourite of mine. It's glowing very brightly, continuing to glow for a good length of time, so I think they've made the correct choice by using C3 rather than BGW9, which is the other default option. Nice peach tone to it in daylight conditions. It's like a lemon tone to the applied indices, the Arabic numerals and also the hands. Right, so let's discuss the movement used. So this piece uses the Seiko NH35A automatic, which you'll all be familiar with. The NH35A automatic has 24 joules. It runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz. It has hand winding and hacking, which use for complications, 40-hour power reserve, which is perfectly acceptable, and the stated accuracy is -20 to +40 seconds per day, so a rather wide accuracy range. However, this one has been regulated very well, and it's running at +8 seconds per day, which is perfectly acceptable, and well within the -20 to +40 stated accuracy limits of the NH35A automatic. So lastly, I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch should meet 2 criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So I would describe the quality as good. I'm not going to say it's excellent because there is room for improvement with regards to the finishing of the piece, and also I think they've made a big mistake with the use of a PVD black coated bezel. It should have been brushed satin finish, which would have been more practical. There are areas of the case that could be refined. Yes, there is a nice lustre to the 316L grade stainless steel flanks, and as you can see, they've engraved it to make it look like rivets of panels riveted together as per the wings of the Spitfire. But there are areas of the case that could be finished to a higher standard. The mirror polishing to the chamfers on the edge of the case is done to a very nice standard, but overall, I think that at this price point, $330 I would expect to see higher grade of brushed satin finishing and higher grade mirror polishing to the bevels, for example. Now, with regards to the value, I regard this as poor value. So why do I say poor and not good or excellent? It comes down to the movement. this is $330 and really the NH35A automatic is a reliable, well-proven workhorse movement. It's perfectly acceptable between $100 and $200. It is the default option for micro brands and Chinese brands. The NH35A is a good movement, but at $330 one has to get a higher grade of movement than the NH35A. It's just not good enough. Okay, it's $100 to $200, but when one gets to $330, it has to be something like a Miyota 9015, or alternatively the Miyota 8315, which is the successor to the 8215. So the 8315 is very impressive because it has a 60-hour power reserve and it has hand winding and hacking, which is something that the 8215, its predecessor, doesn't have. So I would like to see either Miyota 9015 or the Miyota 8315 put into this. Now the other advantage of using Miyota movement rather than the NH35A is it's a thinner movement, and that would mean that AVI-8 could reduce the overall thickness of the piece from 14.4mm, which is very tall, down to 13mm, which would be a big advantage because it would mean even with the double dome sapphire crystal, at 13mm it would slip easily underneath the shirt cuff, and although it's a large piece at 42, it would mean it's more low profile, it would wear more flat on the wrist, and that would make it more suitable for collectors with a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches to wear. So it's a watch that really needs a change of movement, an upgrade to a Miyota movement. I think the NH35A would have been okay if this watch was $100 to $200. At $330 it's just not good enough. So that's the reason why I say that it is good quality but poor value. So I think there's room for improvement with it, but however it is a good looking piece. If you like the Flieger style or alternatively pilot style watches and you like the aesthetic of it being inspired by the Spitfire fighter plane, you may like the watch. So I hope you've enjoyed my review of the AVI-8 Spitfire Smith Automatic. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you very much.